Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you once again for joining us for the United Regional Chambers Weekly Update. We try to bring on some interesting subjects and some interesting guests. And this week I'm bringing on a social media specialist. As we all know, social media has invaded all of our lives. And some of us old guys and gals don't handle it very well. That's why we have experts like Ms. B. Santangelo, who owns Busy Bee Social. Hey, Ms. B, how are you?
Hi, Jack. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, we really appreciate it. You have helped myself and the chamber come out of the 17th century when it comes to social media. And we're hoping that you'll share a few tips today to help some of our other folks, whether you're in business or whether you're at home, one way or
Yeah,
the other.
absolutely. Yeah, that's my goal. That's my goal today.
So, first off, tell us a little bit about Miss B.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who don't know me, so my name is B Santangelo. I am the founder of Busy Bee Social, and I actually operate out of Medway, Massachusetts. So, a little bit about me is that I am actually very much so left-brained and right-brained, which has helped my business thrive this past 5 years and help over 200 businesses really, increase their social media presence online and ultimately, grow their business. So, I actually started as a trained tax accountant when I went to school for, undergrad. And so once I graduated, I went into tax accounting at some big four, and then I went internal tax, and then ultimately I ended up in finance. So, how this took a left turn was that I was actually, for the first time in my life, let go out of nowhere. I didn't know it was coming, and it was actually like the day after my birthday, so it was like a double whammy. But I was very fortunate at the time that my boyfriend, now husband, told me to really take the time to figure out, my next steps in my career and do something that really fulfilled me. And so I had already been organically marketing since I was 5. I actually had 4 businesses before I was even 18 years old. So I kind of went back to that and I said, this is something I've always loved and I've just always done naturally. And so I really leaned into that. And so from when I got let go in April of 2020, right when, COVID hit and the world shut down, I went and I opened, Busy Bee Social. I put my head down. I really did the research and the work I needed to do to figure out how I could best help my local community. And so, yeah, that's basically how you find me 5 years later is loving what I do every single day. And I'm very fortunate that I got fired 5 years ago.
Well, at least that's the great way of looking at it. And
Yeah,
folks, if
right?
you haven't caught on by now, Miss B is the Energizer Bunny on steroids. She just does some amazing stuff.
You're
Um,
sweet. You're
so
very sweet,
let's
Jack.
talk
Thank you.
about some new business owners, for instance. Give us
Yeah.
a tip on what's one thing you'd recommend to a new business owner as they're starting their social media journey.
So, my biggest recommendation for new business owners is to experiment on one platform at a time, right? Because the first thing that business owners do when they open up a company is, oh my gosh, I want to claim all of my names on all the social media platforms so that if I go to create an account later, it's not already taken, which makes sense. So, do that. Claim the accounts. However, only focus on building one at a time and that'll keep you from getting what's called burnt out when it comes to creating that content for social media. Because what new business owners don't realize is that when you're creating a social media platform, you're not just slapping your brand on it and letting it sit there. You have to engage with it, right? It's called social media for a reason. The applications want you to be engaging with one another, commenting and speaking with one another, and the accounts that do that early on often reap the benefits of that hard work, and down the line will eventually be able to move to that second, third, fourth platform, and will have a following them to those different platforms as they grow.
Well, you mentioned different platforms, and
Yeah.
one that I don't know, we don't do it here yet.
Mhm.
Yet is a operative word, but is TikTok going anywhere?
That is a great question. It's very loaded, though. So, obviously, we know that there's things going on in the political climate ByteDance, the owner, is a Chinese conglomerate, and so they're trying to have ByteDance sell their portion to a United States operating. company, essentially. So there are a few companies in talks right now. It's rumored that Meta actually might be purchasing TikTok, which opens a whole can of worms for a few other problems. But ultimately, I would say to operate on the side of caution. If you are, for instance, like a business owner that operates like creating physical goods like pottery or scarves, things like that, and you operate a TikTok shop, if that is your only source of revenue right now, you're going to want to diversify. You're going to want to try out Etsy. You're going to want to try out an Instagram shop because, God forbid, 3 months down the line, if something happens and ByteDance doesn't sell and they can't delay taking that off of the App Store, your central source of income might disappear overnight. So protect yourself, make your business, what's it called? I know it's usually recession proof, but I guess it would be uh, TikTok blackout proof.
Yeah.
Really lean into it. So yeah, diversify for sure. I would lean into that.
All right. Well, for a new business owner or even a current business owner,
Yeah.
what social media would you recommend for all owners to have? At least one, maybe two.
Okay, so first and foremost, a lot of people don't consider this a social media platform. However, it is. You need to have a Google business page. So that is where you go and you collect all of these 5-star, fantastic, raving reviews, right? And that actually helps these business owners become searchable in their area. The more interaction they have, the more 5 stars reviews they have. If they're utilizing things like the updates feature on Google Business, all of these things will actually help you reach your target audience in your hyper local area if that is pertinent to your business. So, absolutely, number one, Google business page. Everyone needs one. And if you don't have a brick and mortar, you can still have a Google business page. You might actually just have to meet with them face to face to verify that you are an individual. The second platform I would say people to utilize would really depend on who they're targeting, right? So, if you are a product-based business owner that is targeting people from the ages of, you know, 21 to 35, most of that demographic is going to sit on Instagram or TikTok, right? So that's where you would want to go for that. However, if you are a service based business that targets people over the age of 35 in your hyper local area, I would say, like, for instance, a landscaper, right? Someone like that, I would say Facebook would actually be your preferred platform because there are different things that you can utilize on Facebook that would get your content in front of your target audience that you couldn't necessarily utilize on Instagram. So yes, those would be my recommendations based on those very broad demographics. But that's why I meet with people and go through it one by one.
Right. And you help them decide which platforms to use for
Yes.
whatever their product or service might be.
Yep.
So, it's worth a conversation.
Yeah,
And
and
your
the and
info,
the thing that I
runs
really
across the bottom of the screen. Are there any tools that you'd recommend to business owners to get help creating their own social media?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I don't have it with me, but I would say a Bluetooth tripod. And so you can find them on Amazon for anywhere between like 15 to $30. You really don't have to invest in something super expensive. You just want something compact and something that can hold your phone steady, right? So I've invested in one of those. I've also invested in travel lights. So if you are someone that records in, for instance, if you have a chocolate factory, right? And you're inside of the factory and it's the lighting isn't consistent, you're going to want to get that consistent lighting because that higher quality lighting will lead to higher quality video, which means it'll actually get in front of more people. Because a lot of people don't realize that the lower quality video you have, the less it's actually pushed out to your followers.
Now, tell us a little bit. How is that pushed out? How is a video pushed out to your different followers?
Sure, yeah. So it depends on the platform that you're utilizing. So, for instance, I'm going to use Instagram as an example. So, Instagram, all the social media platform utilizes what's called an engagement rate. But Instagram's CEO, Adam Mosseri, actually went on video about a month ago at this point, explaining the detail and breaking down how the algorithm works. So, for instance, say Jack was going to post something for the United Regional Chamber, right? And he posted it at 2:30 on a Tuesday because that is when all of his followers are around. your video will get more reach if people start commenting, sharing on it, saving on it within the first hour of it being posted. That is
Oh.
because that triggers to the algorithm that your video is interesting to your target demographic and it'll start showing it, right? So that leads you into something else called non-follower reach. So obviously the people that are following you are going to have your video pop up on their feed. However, if your video starts getting a lot of engagement from your immediate followers, Instagram is actually going to push it out to non followers. So it allows people that might have similar interests to your current followers, but don't know you yet to discover your profile. So that's the really cool, little tip that I can give people is the more you get engagement within that first hour after posting, the better it will do.
Now, I know most of the tips that you've shared with us already today, also would apply if you're an individual. Is there any little
Yes.
difference that you might point out between being an individual and your business?
Yes. So that would honestly just come down to the kind of account that you're using. So, for instance, if you are an individual, right? If I were going to use my personal Instagram, that would be a personal Instagram page, right? So you wouldn't have access to things like analytics or the music files and things like that to utilize for your videos. However, if you shift your profile from a personal profile to a creator or business profile, that unlocks a whole plethora of different tools that you can utilize to figure out what your target audience is interested in, and that can be as detailed as where they're located in the world or in your state that you're living in, their age demographic, whether they're male or female, all the way down to things like what time the largest part of your audience is online and what days that is. So, that's the difference, the quick high level difference between a personal account versus a business or creator account.
And I think in conversations that we've had in the past, you've mentioned that the time sometimes is very important
Yeah.
when you put
Mhm.
something out. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, I have a variety of different clients that are all over the board. And so, for my restaurant clients, right, I usually will post their content anywhere between 6 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, there is a strategy for this because people that are usually, looking at food accounts usually scroll, right? And so, what do you do when you get up in the morning? You look at your phone first. So, if my clients are posting around the time that these people are getting up, my clients' content is most likely going to be seen by them as soon as they wake up. And what happens then? Oh man, that looks really good. I want to order that for lunch. Or, oh, I don't feel like cooking today. I want to order that for dinner. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you've converted a lead without even trying because you're utilizing the strategy of finding a time that works for the larger part of your target demographic. So yes, there's strategy that goes into it, but that would just be an example of something that I would do for like a restaurant client.
All right. Well, as we come to a close, is there any final tips or things you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I just want to say that don't be afraid to experiment with different types of content and different kinds of videos because, for every one example you can find of someone going viral doing things one way, you can find an exact opposite of someone doing it completely different and also finding success. So, the most success that you're going to find is the originality and the personality that you bring to your content. So, you are who you are for a reason. Your business is, operating for a reason and showcase that and be individual and you'll definitely reap the benefits of that.
Well, awesome. Miss Santangelo, thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show today. We truly appreciate it. Big shout out to James Friedman and the team over there at AACS who put up with me every
Mhm.
week. We truly appreciate that. And folks, hope you have a great week. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.